Let me just point out, Senator Kennedy, he hasn't won the presidency yet. It's still relatively early in this night.
Well, I think it is important that those that haven't voted go out and participate and vote. It's amazingly important that they do. I know John Kerry has certainly urged that. All of us would certainly do that. But I say that we are encouraged with the kind of response that John Kerry has received.
Senator, are there key states that you, as a political pro, and you're a pro among pros, are looking at? Are there certain things that will indicate to you early on where this is going?
Well, I think your analysts have gone through the major states with the major electoral college numbers, and they are clearly the Ohio's and Florida's and Pennsylvania and Michigan and the North, and the cluster of other states that appear in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa. But what I think is enormously important and impressive is that there's a whole movement and a whole tide. The turnout has been uniform, really almost uniform across the country, and the numbers of turnout. Americans wanted to participate in this election. Americans want to have a voice in their future. And I think what you're seeing, at least my impression, is that they want a new leadership. They want to have a restoration of American prestige and influence and leadership abroad. And they want a president that's going to focus on the middle class working families here at home, and education and health care and these other issues.
Senator Kennedy,
they're going to receive that.
Senator Kennedy, a lot of people think that the country is about as divided today as it was perhaps during the Vietnam War in '68 or '72. Have you seen the country this divided in a long time?
Well, it's clearly divided. These races are going to be close. I think it's going to be close in the United States Senate as well. I'm hopeful that we'll do well in the Senate races, because in order for a president really to get his program on through, you need the support in the Senate and obviously the House of Representatives. So I'm hopeful that in some of these tight races for the United States Senate, it'll go John Kerry's way. But, I find in my colleagues and friends in the Senate on both sides, they really want to get about the business of addressing the challenges that we're facing at home. There's a general sense among, I find, Republicans and Democrats alike, that we're just not dealing with the real problems and challenges that we're facing here at home. And I think that the John Kerry, his great challenge will be to try and bring people together. But I think with those efforts and being sincere about it, he'll work hard at it, and I think it can be done. It has to be done.
If he is elected, can he work well with a Republican majority Senate and House?
Well, that's going to be certainly a challenge. I think there are members in the leadership in the Republican Party and among the Republicans that really want to see progress made on our domestic issues and also in foreign policy. And I know John Kerry, it'll be a challenge in trying to work out these differences, and because there are a lot of raw endings, from the result of this campaign. But I think he's up to the task. I think he is ready to take that challenge on as well. It's going to be necessary. It's going to need the kind of skills that John Kerry has, but I know he's capable and will do it.
Well, there's still a possibility, Senator Kennedy, as you well know, that John Kerry might not be elected, that George W. Bush might be reelected. If he is reelected, how disappointed will you be?
Oh, I'll be very disappointed, but I don't think I'm going to be very disappointed. Every indication is moving in John Kerry's favor. This has been a hard, tough-fought campaign. I respect the candidates that obviously have been out there, the presidential candidates, President Bush. But I think tonight is John Kerry's night, and I think we're going to see some good outcomes for our Senate races as well. This has been, people have gone to the polls and said they want a new direction, new leadership, and I think that's going to be the outcome.
What do you hear from your Senate Majority Leader? How's he doing?
I talked
Minority Leader. Thinking ahead again.
Hopefully he'll be Majority Leader by our next meeting. He's in a tough race. He's always known it. That's a very close election out there. But I think that people in that state know that in South Dakota know that Tom Daschle delivers for them. Why would anyone in South Dakota, when you have the chance, what I believe, and you're going to have a Democratic president, want to give up having someone who is the Democratic leader in the United States Senate, has a good chance of becoming the majority leader? If you're concerned about all of the challenges that they're facing, particularly the Native Americans who need to turn out, and no one has been a stronger supporter for Native Americans than Tom Daschle. But why in the world would they want to turn out someone who's highly regarded, highly respected, and is able to get things done for South Dakota, particularly when he has a good friend, and John Kerry is a good friend of Tom Daschle, they have the opportunity to have such an influence. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Tom Daschle is coming back.
All right, we will soon find out. Senator Kennedy from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He's been with Senator Kerry from the beginning. Thanks very much for joining us from Boston. Anderson Cooper is standing by to give us some word on the United States Senate. What do we know so far, Anderson?
Wolf, we were following a number of Senate races very closely. Some of the most fascinating stories of this election are happening in the Senate. We can project 3 states right now. First, Georgia, a win for Johnny Isakson, a pickup for the Republicans. This, of course, is Zell Miller, a Democrat's old seat. Johnny Isakson, not a great surprise, though, picking it up in Georgia. CNN projecting Johnny Isakson is the winner there. Also, Indiana, Democrat Bai is the winner in Indiana, and in Vermont, of course, Patrick Leahy is the winner there. Really no 2 great surprises in the state of Indiana and Vermont, nor in the state of Georgia. Johnny Isakson up against Denise Majette, a representative, but who did not have the name recognition that he had, really not have the money. She entered into the race rather late, she from Atlanta. These are the 9 key races we're watching. I want to bring in Amy Walter with the Cook Political Report, who's also been following this all with us. Amy, thanks for joining us. These races are fascinating. If you have not been following these 9 races, you've really been missing out on one of the great stories of this campaign. Let's just briefly go around the board, take a look. Let's look at where we have numbers first. Right down here, South Carolina. It is at this point Jim DeMint, Inez Tenenbaum. Jim DeMint seems to have a firm lead, but at this point it is still very early days. This is really virtually meaningless, only a couple hundred votes here. The race is surprisingly close.
Well, it's amazing that this race is even on the board. It is a Democratic-held seat. This is Fritz Hollings' seat down in South Carolina. But the fact is, this is a state that's so Republican. It's quite remarkable that Inez Tenenbaum is able to keep the race as tight as she has. A
very conservative district. Jim DeMint has raised some eyebrows. He at one point said that gay men should not be teachers. Also, he said unwed pregnant women should not be teachers as well, which I think he apologized for that. But again, we're still getting results in. It looks like Jim DeMint in the lead, but again, these numbers are very early. Kentucky, another fascinating race. Jim Bunning, former Major League ball player, pitched a perfect game for the Philadelphia Phillies against Dan Monjardo.
Right. Again, another race that wasn't supposed to be on this board. In fact, this was a race that broke very, very late, in part due to Senator Bunning. Dan Monjardo made a big deal of the fact that Bunning, he's questioned his fitness. The 73-year-old has made some comments. This has been a real issue in this campaign. Remember, Bunning very narrowly won his race in 1998, so it was supposed to be a close race. Now it is.
Polls have closed in South Carolina, in Kentucky, but at this point we do not have enough information to call any of them. I want to talk about some of these races a little bit later on. Most importantly, though, South Dakota, you just heard Larry King, you just heard Senator Kennedy talking about it. This is a remarkably close race, a big money race, some more than $30 million put into this race by both candidates, and there are only about 350,000 voters in the state.
That's right. This is a state that has been inundated with money for the last 4 years. Remember, 2 years ago, there was a very, very close race. John Thune, yes, exactly.
Ran against, lost by some 500 votes.
524 votes. So this is a state that will be very, very close. It's obviously very important watching it very closely.
There's some 700,000 people in the state, but only about 300,000 or 350 registered voters. A lot to watch tonight. These are the 9 races we're going to be keeping a very close eye on for you all night long. It is going to be a fascinating night.
Those races are very, very important for the American public. Anderson and Amy, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. In only about 6 minutes, 3 more states will be closing. 6 minutes and 13, 12, 11 seconds to go. Ohio, North Carolina, West Virginia coming up. We may have some projections, we may not. Stick around. We're at Times Square in New York.
CNN tomorrow, a special special 5-hour edition of American Morning. Results and election highlights from all the races. American Morning, CNN tomorrow, 7 Eastern.
Till America Votes 2004 is sponsored by Chrysler. Inspiration comes standard. And by Samsung. Excellence is within everything we create. Samsung Electronics. Log on to cnn.com/election for up-to-the-minute analysis of the election and its outcome.
Welcome back to the CNN election headquarters here in New York City. We're picking up our coverage right now. I think we have, how much time? We have 2 minutes and 45 seconds before the half hour, and we'll be able to presumably maybe make another projection or so. But let's show our viewers, Jeff, what we can do on these walls. Let's put up all 50 states and the District of Columbia and give our viewers a sense. Obviously, Alaska, that's going to be way, way, way on the West Coast, 1 a.m. But these early states, in fact, let's walk over to the early states on the East Coast and give our viewers a sense of some of the numbers that may or may not be coming up right now. Maine is a state, it's an interesting state because it can split its electoral votes.
That's right. It blasted it in 1828. They think there might be one electoral vote up there for George W. Bush this time, but that's one of the states that we're all watching. It's a state that Bush won by 7,000 votes. Nader widely credited or blamed with making the difference, and John Kerry's campaign really wants that one.
Vermont, we've already projected, will go for John Kerry. Not a surprise there. Massachusetts closing at the top of the hour. 8 o'clock, Rhode Island and Connecticut still to come as well. Pennsylvania closing in what, about 32 minutes from now.
The Bush campaign wants that more than any other. 21 electoral votes. They think they have a shot because it's a state with a lot of pro-life, gun-owning Democrats. Everybody's poured in tens of millions of dollars to that one. Let's continue walking down this wall and take a look at some other states we're going to be looking at the top of the hour. How about that one right there called Florida? I think we all remember Florida, Wolf. I think it's fair to say that 27 electoral votes were decided by 537 votes, or if you ask the Democrats, 5 members of the U.S. Supreme Court. A big kahuna would be in Hawaii, but there's no state more in play than that one. Florida. Georgia, we've already projected, will go for the President of the United States. Kentucky as well. These southern states pretty much expected to go for the President as well. The Democrats cast a covetous eye on Arkansas. Bill Clinton was down there the Sunday before the election. There's no data we have yet, but that's one the Democrats would love to pluck out of the Republican column. All right, we'll see what happens in Arkansas. We'll be watching. No doubt about Texas, I think it's fair to say, the home state of George W. Bush. Safe call. Missouri, the Democrats pulled out of Missouri 3 weeks ago, and some Democrats think that may have been a mistake. That's a state that's voted with the winner all but one time in 100 years. We'll see whether that was a mistake at the end of the day. Michigan is also a state that the Republicans seriously covet. That state, along with Pennsylvania, are the 2 Gore states from 2000 that Bush campaign most wanted. This, again, these were where the Reagan Democrats were born in reaction to patriotism, where the Nixon Democrats deserted the party on busing. Social issues in rural Michigan play a big role. But it's also a state that's been hard hit economically. That affects the Democrats. It's 7:30 exactly now on the East Coast, and CNN is ready to project that George W. Bush will carry the state of West Virginia. Jeff Greenfield, West Virginia is a state the Democrats hoped to be able to carry, but this state and its 5 electoral states we project will go for the president. Michael Dukakis won this state. It was about as reliably Democratic as possible, but social issues, gun ownership, abortion plays very badly here for the Democrats, and it's a state that is now in George Bush's pocket once again. And I want to alert our viewers, we do not have enough information yet to make projections in the other 2 states that are closing right now, North Carolina and Ohio. Ohio is about as important as it gets. You know how they say that blue is the new black in fashion? Ohio, a lot of people think, is the new Florida, not just because it's in play, but because huge pre-election controversies grew up about whether or not provisional ballots would be counted and how. Everybody's eye will be on Ohio. The fact that we can't project a winner in Ohio or North Carolina, what, if anything, does that mean? We don't know. It could mean nothing. Could mean we don't have enough information, which it probably means, and eventually down the road it may mean it's too close to call. But we really want to emphasize, Wolf, that the fact that we're not calling a state doesn't mean it's close. We are being cautious. All of us have, we don't have Georgia on our minds, like the great Ray Charles said. We got Florida on our minds, 2000.
All right, let's go to Judy Woodruff. She's over at the CNN election